All right, man. So, agencies, agencies. Um, what do
There's
a
several types of agencies too,
Okay.
but like the specific one that I work in is an advertising agency. Sometimes like
Mhm.
there are content agencies or like production agencies out there. Um, in the advertising world, there are marketing agencies or like strategic agencies, consulting agencies. There's a variety of agencies out there. Like agency is just like a term for like the business model, I think.
And is it true that advertising agencies are one of the most like intense, cutthroat, like everyone's out to get each other, stressful work hours, workload, everyone's running around with their hands in the air? Is that the vibe? I mean, that's the stereotype, at least from my end.
Yeah, I mean, there is some truth in terms of like the intensity of it, but I think like that's kind of rooted in terms of the history of like how the industry used to be in this type of culture where like it's more like a small type of industry cliques, and then you're mainly kind of dealing business in like smaller industry circles, and then just these small groups of people that are handling these large advertising budgets, and then there are like very high barriers to entry. Whereas like nowadays, like I feel all those barriers are kind of coming down a little bit in terms of more specialization in different agencies have kind of allowed these brands to allocate different parts of their budget, their ad budget or marketing budget to different agencies, and that kind of created more competition. And then they had to figure out like more newer ways to kind of innovate within the industry, and the entire advertising culture specifically had to change. So like now it's like a little bit better, but there's still like that kind of barrier in terms of you kind of have to like know exactly what's kind of going on in terms of like how the whole structure works. But once you get the context of it and then understands how it all works, I mean, it's basically fair game.
And what are the types of um, this might sound like a broad question. Like, what are the types of advertising work that can be done? Like, what are the very hyper niche types of ways that a marketing or a company could spend their marketing budget on that are like, I don't know, new and interesting that people might not have heard of? I don't
So, I mean, that's more of a question in terms of this on the strategic side on what these marketers on the client size brands are kind of thinking on in terms of how they allocate their marketing strategy in terms of like their budgets. But I work on the creative side where it's usually like we're usually the ones that are coming up with like whatever ideas or like communication ideas that's like more consumer facing, and then just kind of creating these different narratives, like how Coca-Cola is kind of, you get the vibe that it's all about happiness, and their tagline is open happiness. That's usually done by agency creative versus like their own marketing teams themselves. They might have like taken the footprint of the strategic direction of how they communicate that. Like they want everyone to see a can of Coke and then think of happiness towards it. And like maybe like it's all about like, oh, sharing and cheerful times, and every time you open a can you feel better. They want people to feel that. And then usually the agency people, the creative people are usually the ones that's kind of given the more specific narratives of those type of
know.
situations.
How do creative teams work? Is it like some dude comes in with like this is our brief, and then everyone fights to the death, like Hunger Games style, with their creative ideas, and like they pitch their ideas, and it gets shot down by some like old exec dude or something? What's the how does the process work of briefing and creative stuff?
Yeah. So the briefing process comes from the agency. Hopefully, they have a good relationship with a client. It's usually narrowed down in terms of a strategic direction on how they want to communicate to their audience. And then once they kind of workshop a little bit together and figure that out, that's eventually turned into a creative brief that kind of has all the strategic narratives of how they want to approach the work. Here you have their specific problem from the business point of view. And then in terms of like strategy, they kind of link it to a consumer problem point of view, and then kind of create this kind of overall narrative of this is, in this route is where like there's an intersection between the two. Let's say, for example, you have a consumer packaged food brand. Let's say their business problem is like, oh, they're selling cereal. Their whole business problem is that they want people to buy more of their cereal, but there's so many different type of flavors and cereal brands that consumers might feel like confused, or like there's just so much to choose from. And then from the consumer side, it could be like, oh, they're just looking for a healthy breakfast food that can just like get them through their day. And then that could be like a narrative that kind of you can kind of get a narrative from like those two problems and say, oh, people are looking for a more healthy alternative option for breakfast foods, and through all the noise, they don't know what to select. So like, let's tell people that we are that. So that's usually how those strategic directions kind of come up with, and then we kind of come up with like a narrative that seems at least like different or interesting to tell to the people in terms of in form of an TV ad or a billboard, or I mean during the COVID
Sid Lee
like
works mostly with TV and billboard, like traditional publishing.
Right? Honestly, like Sid Lee has been, even though I'm new to the agency, it seems like they got their media pretty figured out. I mean, like they have a dedicated content team, and yeah, they run these social content. I feel like pretty strategically, and in a pretty interesting, I mean, like streamlined process where like it feels more organized than other places I've been to. So like that's been kind of nice to just see in general that they're kind of on top of it.
Right. I'm also curious about like, so the account managers in like an agency, right? In like the non-agency world, like I haven't done account management work. I've done account executive work. Account managers, it seems like you just manage an account, right? You maintain the relationship.
Same category inside an agency. That's literally the same category. If you like run up your ladders, you kind of sometimes like different agencies call these like job titles different titles, but usually you have something in terms of like, you would first start off with like intern or like assistant account managers, and then you become like account executives or managers, sometimes they're called, and then supervisors, directors, and then you got your group directors sometimes, and then it moves up to VP. That's kind of like the chain of accounts people.
And do accounts people have to know a lot of creative, or they have to know strategy? It seems, right, a little bit. What do they need to know? Because in my mind, accounts people are just salespeople, like at the
Right.
core, right?
In an agency, to me, what it comes down to is your effective, or you're kind of being the face of the agency, and through that, you kind of have to know in general about everything that goes on in an agency. Because like you're being the face, and like sometimes like you need to communicate with these clients effectively as well, while like just kind of managing their projects and understanding what their problems are. You're kind of being the client's therapist, but also trying to uh, move the conversation along the chain between the two parties. And through that, I always find like great accounts people at an agency, at least, like they understand roughly at least on how the creative work is, how the creative process moves with creative people, and how strategy matters in terms of like narrowing down a specific target for the client and the agency to kind of move together along the line, and how the whole production process works. Just generally like knowing a rough overview of when a certain type of project kind of needs to have certain processes, or like you can kind of expect sort of the necessary steps in order to move a project. That's usually very useful to me.
It seems like almost like in some ways like a product manager role.
Yeah, some accounts people actually become project managers. I find it's not super. It's not that uncommon to see like accounts managers finding out, oh, they're better at like moving the work internally, and then become project managers, and they're literally just specialized in doing that.
And so project managers are internal, moving work internally, and account managers interface with clients and work with creators in production, I guess, right?
Yeah, you kind of get a feel on like what you like to do anyways, and then like usually your supervisor or like managers will kind of see, and then kind of cater your work that way.
True. Have you been there long enough to have any like horror stories, or any like I don't know, just I don't know, mess ups of any sort that are fun to share, or like anything like that, or even just fun stories?
I think like not in this specific agency, but like it's not really horror stories, but just like minor annoyances. I mean, like I've had
my impression of the ad agency world is very skewed.
It's fine, but like the fact that we don't make much money is still true.
Hold on, serious responsibility for some reason. Okay, never mind. Yeah, what's up?
So like just like minor annoyances, like in past places I've been to, or just like it seemed like the communication wasn't like there was some kind of broken telephone that happened within the process of like communicating on like what the objective is, or like sometimes you have the situation of like the client is like kind of fed up for whatever reason they might have with like the history of the agency, or like just because you don't like a specific person. Like that kind of translates over where like these type of small relationship problems where like awkwardness like translates to like whether the work gets accepted or rejected or not.
Oh, geez.
So that's kind of just in general like kind of annoying, or like we wish that a lot of times like you kind of do wish that we that's we wish we didn't have that. It would have like saved everyone much more time and less stress. In the end, it's just like overall like everyone tries to be nice with each other anyways, and yeah, I mean like overall I think like what always needs to happen to kind of make the agency and client relationship better overall is just like communicate with each other, trust each other, and just like build relationships is always crucial. Yeah, anything you can do to try to like make everyone happy or like solve everyone's problems in an efficient, effective manner.
Just send a bottle of Crown whiskey to their office. That would be if I was working or leading an agency, that'd be my strategy. Just send alcohol. Just ship alcohol to the office.
Yeah.
Done.
Yeah, send them the gift of a lifetime subscription to Pornhub Premium.
Oh, see, that's a bit too much. That's they'd have to be my like #1 client for that to happen. You know,
that's true. That's true.
Alcohol, okay, but Pornhub Premium lifetime subscription—that's a gift only for the gods, bro. Like only for
that's for your ride or dies.
Exactly. I won't be sending that out too easily. Would you start one in the future?
Members. Only family members for now.
Only family and friends for now. Would you start your own agency in the future? Do you imagine?
Yeah, that's a goal for me. Personally, I want to start an agency that's
OnlyFans
like
agency.
What?
OnlyFans entertainment agency.
Yes.
Yeah. Right, bro. That's where the money is.
We'll diversify our profit, or we'll diversify our revenue streams. So, #1, we have subscriptions. We have like a influencers base. And we also work as an agency in terms of like the service model.
Yeah.
And exactly. We'll also sell our data to Mark Zuckerberg for a premium price.
Exactly. Do everything. We'll help with merchandise. We'll do organize community events, meet and greets, prepare like email automation and communications funnels. We'll do everything. We'll be full service OnlyFans agency. Okay, it's coming soon, 2030.
Yeah. Overall, like, that's my goal of like innovating the industry in some way. Like whether it's like use data better, or because like personally, I feel like a good majority of the traditional players are not utilizing technology, even though they have the data from their projects in the first place. They're just not applying those data in terms of like an effective ROI kind of driven model, or like in order to show their clients transparently.
What are the traditional players, by the way, just for context? Like what are some of the names of the big players? Because I don't know this space.
You got I mean like if you pull back the layers, the big traditional players in the ad world, and then this is like a giant oligarchy of a whole advertising institution. There are like mainly 3 holding companies that are big in across North America and Europe. There's WPP. There's I think it's OMD, and then there's I think there's also Dentsu, and some like very little giant holding companies that owns like a bunch of different agency brands, and that's their
Oh,
whole entire model. They just acquire uh, emerging, upcoming players in their respective countries or regions, and then that's literally their model of just buying
damn,
new emerging agencies.
damn! I didn't
and
even know the
and what
agency world was controlled by holding companies. It's just a bunch of guys that come basically own all of the agency brands that we know, right? So even the ones that we know aren't the biggest. Like I was thinking, like I don't know, like I don't know these brands. There's what's there's that Kennedy brand. That's pretty popular. Am I wrong?
which
What W and
oh
Kennedy is that?
Biden and Kennedy.
Yeah,
I
like
believe that's correct.
I thought that was like the top, but there's a holding company above that too. You know, that's intense.
Oh yeah, what they've done was really interesting because they're one of the main independent players that actually got big globally.
Hmm, nice.
Right now, like I think like they're in its own kind of. I think they're still operating independently, if I remember it right.
Mhm. Let's stop the recording here.
Yeah, they're a global independent agency.